Okay, we're going to try to rip through this OSHA walking and working surfaces. 1910 subpart D, I love regulations. I love to read the Federal Register. I love to try to figure out what our government is doing. And last year, we went through the DVIR thing. A lot of drivers called me and they're like, you're wrong, this is what the Green Book says. And I'm just going to real briefly go over how a lot of these laws pass. It's called tailgating. So when people want to pass a law that other people don't like and get shot down 2 or 3 times, let's say with the DVIRs, federal motor carriers didn't want to stop us from doing that every day on our post trip. They did not want to change that rule, but the trucking companies did. So to make it so that we only had to do a DVIR at the completion of, or after, from the onset of a defect repair and each day thereafter until it's fixed, instead of every day at the end of the day, what they did is they tailgated that on the end of the Obama Paperwork Reduction Act of 2011. They throw it in at the 23rd hour after the law has already been reviewed, and that's how it slips through the crack. It's a tricky move politicians play to pass law, and this one worked out to our benefit. That's how they slipped through the DVIR law. So it's almost a full-time job. I subscribe to the Federal Register, so guys are like, well, why doesn't the Federal Motor Carriers book read right? So to help Brad and Roger understand, I wrote to Madison, Illinois, to the head of Federal Motor Carriers and to the Ohio Regional Office in Columbus and said, I'm sorry to bother you guys again, but once again I have to prove to a large group of people that I'm not crazy and I'm not making stuff up, because the way this big green book reads for federal motor carriers seems wrong. So could you please confirm that the DVIR rule change says that we only have to do it from the onset of a defect and each day until it's repaired, that was covered under the Obama 2011 Paperwork Reduction Act? Answer, yes. So then, to clarify something else, I said, how long would you anticipate before that is reflected in federal regulations? Anybody want to guess how long it takes? About 10 years is average for the writing will be correct in our book. So that's how laws get passed. So in order to keep up with all this stuff this year, I've gone to about 70 hours of classes just to keep up with the regulatory change. EEOC, ADA, Disabled Americans, what applies to us in OSHA, the Federal Motor Carrier Regulations, and there's still a possibility that I could miss stuff. I mean, it is a full-time job trying to keep up with it. So a lot of the metals facilities were having a meltdown over this OSHA walking and working surfaces. This is the biggest update to OSHA regulations since about 1975. So I was actually called out to Gregory to help them look at their situation in Canton, where they're going to put platforms on the side of the truck to help the drivers load. So after all my letters and questions to everybody and taking a whole bunch of classes, OSHA says Federal Motor Carriers governs transportation and we don't have to do this. That's what they said. And vice versa. Neither one of them want to take blame. Bottom line is transportation companies can be cited under a general duty clause. What that is in short, it says is if in any company, manufacturing, trucking, whatever, if there is a recognized hazard, something that could cause you to get hurt, they don't go digging into any crazy regulations. They cite you under the general duty clause under OSHA rules. So when do I worry about this? When Roger Riblett's standing over to, where was he at, Worcester?
MTD and Willard.
MTD and Willard, and a coil rolls across the parking lot and smashes into his truck. That's when I worry about this. When Chuck Kennedy passes away from natural causes at the fuel pump, that's when I worry about this. Because like earlier we talked about marking our shops, having appropriate walkways, marking electrical panels, stuff that we're going to do this year. That all comes together, Federal Motor Carrier Regulations, OSHA regulations. When something catastrophic happens, it's too late to do it. So does this apply to us? It does. When we climb up and down a fixed ladder onto a dock, when we're standing on our trailer, and I know this is not some exciting material. I had to go to a week of classes for this. So we're going to try to get through this. This regulation is another 600-pager, 500 and some pages. This is the briefest version I could find, 66 pages. I'm going to skip a bunch of it that's in here that doesn't apply to us. So I tried to compact a lot of these slides into multiple pages. So the first thing I need you to do is take your pen, and on the first page, I want you to put your employee signature. The date today is 3/14/18, and write green lines, and I want you to tear this page out of the book and send them up here. Would you like a book, Brad? There is one somewhere.
Sorry, I'll be the
He needs one, me too.
Here, right here. So I'm going to keep talking while you guys are writing, because I know you love to hear me talk. So the definition of a walking working surface is any horizontal or vertical surface on which through an employee walks, works, or gains access to a work area. That's anything. Walking up the wall, standing on the ceiling, right? Fall protection is any equipment that is designed to prevent injuries and include covers, designated areas, guardrails, handrails, fall protection systems, ladder safety systems, and safety nets. Is anybody loaded at any of the mills that have nets?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jackson.
So when you're starting to see truck drivers with cables hooked on their back and nets in these roll-up platforms, this is what this is all about. 1910-178 subpart D, OSHA walking and working surfaces. Everybody's like, oh my God, we're never going to make the deadline. This is so complicated. It's pretty much common sense, guys. It's not that complicated. So if you go to, after you rip your front page out there, if you go to page 1, the introduction, that's what I'm covering right here, what is a walking working surface. I've really condensed this a lot, so I'm not reading verbatim out of here. I'm trying to speed it up for you guys and still give you the training that you need. Down at the bottom of the slide, slip, trip, and fall accidents pose a significant risk, death, or harm according to OSHA data. Super interesting fact I learned, at least I thought it was interesting. In the electrical industry, what is the #1 cause of death to electricians? Does anybody know?
Oh.
It's falls. And I'll tell you, they're working on a kind of a light. What kind of light do you think they're working on when they fall and die?
We're working on a letter.
Fluorescent fixture. The most common cause to death of electricians is falling off a ladder, working on a fluorescent fixture. I can't remember the number, it's thousands of deaths a year. And it's not the electricity that kills them. It's hitting their head on the floor. So when you fall from a short distance, 4 feet or less, which is one of the significant rules that they changed here. Everything is geared around 4 feet instead of 6 feet now, okay? What's the first thing that's going to hit the ground? If you fall off the side of a trailer, what's the first thing that's going to hit? Feet or head? Your head. Your body doesn't have time to right itself. Your head will always hit the ground first. Daytona Bike Week, 10 years ago, came up to a light, a guy on a Road King pulled up next to me at 3 miles an hour, tipped over at the light, his head snapped, I saw it, died right there on the scene instantly. Your head is like a watermelon, it only whacks the ground once, you don't have to fall very far to die. If you fall off a ladder, we've had a couple guys here step off the side of trailers since I've worked here. Easy mistake to make, I've done it, I've stepped between the plate and the back, messing around with an electric jack, and wham! Now you're down to your knee between the plate, right, and that crack. So, important stuff to not get hurt. 1910-28B1, employees must be protected while working on a surface with an unprotected side or edge from falling 4 feet or more to a lower level. That is new, and that's one of the significant changes of this law. It's something you should know. OSHA General Duty Clause 178 5A1. 5A1. They're not going to dig. These OSHA guys get paid 45 grand a year. They're just going to write you under the General Duty Clause. So just because Federal Motor Carrier says, oh, this rule doesn't apply to you, because we govern you. And OSHA says, this rule doesn't apply to you, but if somebody gets really hurt on your job, we're going to show up and we're going to cite you $125,000 for willful misconduct under 178-5A1 for you had a known recognized hazard. You could get hurt falling off a flatbed or climbing up a dock ladder or standing on a dock plate. So we know we have hazards at this job, so it does apply to us. So I'm at about page 3 here. Top of the page you'll see inspections, and again, I tried to really pick out the stuff that's pertinent to us in our industry rather than make this something we can't use. So when must inspections be performed? Regularly and necessary to ensure walking working surfaces, I'm going to have that abbreviation in there, WWS, are in safe condition. All working surfaces. So that means trailers, docks, whatever. Doesn't matter if it's mine or the shipper or the consignees. If you're there, it's your responsibility to make sure it's safe for you to work. Hazards are to be corrected before use by a or supervised by a qualified person. Fall protection must be provided if a hazard cannot be eliminated. So if I tell you got to climb up 30 feet up a ladder, you say, no, I don't have to do that. You either have to give me fall protection or I don't have to do it. One or the other. They either have to eliminate the hazard or they have to give you fall protection. Ladders must be inspected at the beginning of each shift before use. Rung steps and cleats must be parallel, level, and evenly spaced when placed for use. Wooden ladders may have no covering that could hide damage. Wooden ladders can't be painted. If you work on electricity, what kind of ladder should you have? Wooden or fiberglass. A lot of this stuff is general common sense. There's a couple of quizzes we're going to have to take in here because I have to have certification that I trained you on this. So this stuff that's highlighted and underlined, trying to help you along here and make sure you know what to do. But you already answered the first one, so you know most of this stuff's going to be common sense. Number 4 up there on the screen, fall protection equipment must be inspected at the beginning of each shift. That's a common theme there, right? Stuff should be inspected at the beginning of each shift for mildew, wear damage, and other deteriorations. Defective systems could be removed from service. Further inspection criteria will be provided by any manufacturer of FPE, fall protection equipment. I'm going to use that abbreviation a lot, FPE, if and when used. Are you guys ever going to use fall protection in the near future? Probably. Yep, probably our Siller Middle and some of the bigger ones are going to make you put a harness on, watch a video. If you've ever been into a GM or a Chrysler plant, they make you watch training videos when you come in and sign a thing that says, I watched this. Some of the bigger mills are talking about having you watch training video, put a harness on, they have an overhead cable and hook it, and it would basically prevent you from hitting the ground if you were to fall off the side of your trailer. They may use nets, they may use platforms. So the other reason that we must do this training is so that you're prepared for this if some of these mills begin to do this, because the compliance date is May of 2018. On to page 4, training. Training must teach you how to recognize fall hazards. If you step off a dock, that's a fall hazard, right? If your curtain's open and you're on a trailer, that's a fall hazard. If you're on a dock and they have a set-in dock plate, those are referred in this regulation to as a dock board, okay? And there's an open gap there, that is a fall hazard. That's the biggest thing we are exposed to as drivers is fall hazards. So you need to be able to recognize a fall hazard, minimize the hazard. Let's put the dock plate up so we're not walking over a crack. Correctly install it, set it up, operate it, maintain it, disassemble it, install fall protection or any equipment used. So that's ladders, that's your sliding curtain, that's a dock board or a dock plate going into a trailer. When must we retrain? Retraining must occur when changes to your workplace make previous training invalid, the type of equipment you use changes, or you were involved in a near-miss incident. Then we are required by law to train you. Page 7. At the top of that, if you would put your name and print my name in there, Steve Ryan, R-Y-A-N, and the date 3/14/18. Location would be Jeffersonville. We'll go through this together.
Let's spell that name.
R-Y-A-N.
Huh?
R-Y-A-N.
Ryan.
I think it's.
I know I don't have no tires or wires, but you can put Ryan on there with a Y. Sorry, Jeff, I gotta take a shot when I can get it. Okay. Question number 1. Somebody's gonna yell out the answer for me because I can't be cheating on this. Who is responsible for evaluating walking and working service hazards in your workplace?
D.
Nope.
C.
A.
C was correct, your employer, okay? Now, when you're at a shipper consignee, it's really up to you to do it, but C is the correct answer. Your employer is required to do that. So we've identified our fall hazards as when you're at a shipper and consignee, which kind of makes it their problem. We still have to be careful on our trailers. So the correct answer is C. Number 2, how often must walking and working surfaces be inspected for hazards?
B.
Be regularly. Very good. You guys must be listening, or I did really good slides. Number 3, what must employers do when they identify a walking working surface hazard?
C.
B is not correct.
C.
C, eliminate it or provide fall protection. Number 4, what do handrails and safety nets have in common?
C.
C, correct. They are both methods of fall protection. Number 5, generally fall protection is required at a height of, what's the new height?
4 feet.
4 feet or more. Wow, you guys were really paying attention. 6, which walking surfaces must be inspected?
All.
All walking surfaces, vertical or horizontal. D is the correct answer. Number 7, what equipment must be inspected?
C.
C, correct. Ladders and PFE, personal fall equipment. Number 8, if you run a forklift on dock boards not equipped with fall protection, I didn't give you that answer, but we'll see how much common sense you got.
A.
Can't be C.
It's C, you're correct. You must receive training. So we're going to stop right there for a minute because this book went in a kind of screwy order. So I'm sure you guys have seen the set-in dock plates. The set-in dock plates that have those little lips on the edge, that's considered protection if they're inside of a building, if it's not an open dock. Because the wheel of the forklift couldn't fall into a crack, all right? But those old dock plates, I used to load over these all the time in Brooklyn and Queens, just a flat plate that just sets in there. Those are not allowed anymore. And there's actually a compliance date that I'm not going over here because it doesn't apply to you because we're not doing that. But those are actually going to be illegal before the end of 2018. I believe it's January 2019. They got to have those sides on them. And if they're working out on an open exposed dock, which is common with flatbed stuff, to pull up to the edge of a dock or something with an overhead crane, then they're going to have guardrails, cables, some other type of protection to prevent you from falling in. Which brings us to Gregory Industries. They're making these giant rolling platforms. You're going to pull into a driving lane and they're going to roll these platforms up to the side of your truck. And then there's a little plate that flips over onto the edge, so you have room to walk back and forth and put chains on because the loads are so awkwardly high, difficult to get chains over. Okay, number 9. You must have training if you use
A.
D.
B.
D, all of the above. If you have anything, ladders, personal fall arrest systems, or positioning devices. Positioning devices are not something we're going to use. A positioning device is something you would climb a tree with. An arborist harness with D-rings on the side of it. D-rings are now prohibited from a personal fall protection harness. So when I climb a tree, I put on my spikes, I put on my bucket, it's got D-rings, and I have a positioning rope that allows me to go up the tree, right, with my spikes on. A full body harness cannot have D-rings on it, cannot be used for positioning anymore. It has a rear lanyard that is a fall restraint device. If you fall, it stops you in 6 feet or 8 feet. So the difference between a positioning device, tree climbing, or a full body harness is it's a fall arrest system stopping you from falling or allows you to position yourself from work. When you're using a positioning device, you may have on a separate fall protection device, but legally they've separated the two devices, so you can't use one for the other. That way if you fall, you're not using that positioning device to arrest your fall. You'd be hanging from a tree like this, right? Where that back strap would catch you with a lanyard and keep you from going more than 6 feet. If you had a positioning device, you could theoretically fall all the way down that tree or whatever your pole or whatever you're climbing. So they really clarified that, even though it doesn't apply to us, that's the difference between the two. Number 10, training includes information on how to D, all of the above. Recognize fall hazards, operate fall protection systems used, and store ladders. Good job. So if you could rip those quizzes out and set them up, that would be great. Make sure you've completed your name, my name, the date, and location.
Easy, easy.
Everybody?
Okay, this slide is not in the book. I added this in here. Our situation involves the use of fixed ladders. Fixed ladders are attached to a structure. Okay? There's a bunch of different kind of ladders, and it's going to seem kind of confusing, but what affects us here at our work, fixed ladders climbing up a dock. That's the most common thing we're going to see as drivers. Climbing on and off the trailer, dock boards, which I always call them a dock plate, I don't know. They call them dock boards. It's for loading, unloading trailers, working on dock platforms at shippers or consignees. Why does this apply to us? Why did the OSHA inspector that taught my class tell me that I need to teach this to trucking company people? Because he's going to cite me other 19, 10, 30 other working surfaces under the general duty clause. That's why. Okay. We are on to page 10. Anchorage. This is going to be a lot of definitions, and most of this stuff is going to help you take the next quiz. Anchorage is a secure point of attachment for lifelines, lanyards, deceleration devices, and rope descents. So a lifeline would be a line like when you're working on a roof that's attached up at the top that allows you to go freely and work freely. A lanyard is something that's going to stop you from falling, okay? A deceleration device, I'm sure you guys have seen free rock climbing where they got that extra lifeline out and they got a brake. It's called a rope brake, and that rope brake is a deceleration device. It slows your descent before the lanyard catches you. Because if you fall too far and your speed's too high, those lanyards can still kill you. So a lot of times people that climb like window washers, they have deceleration devices on their positioning device. So if that big platform they're working on slides and they fall all of a sudden, it'll slow them down before the lanyard catches. So it gets fairly complicated, and these rules are good. They're so people don't get hurt. I think they overcomplicate it. Rope descents, you know, that's basically going down the side of a building on a rope, braking under your own power with some other type of fall protection, possibly a net. Fall protection nets cannot be more than 30 feet below the working surface. Page 10 at the top there, authorized employee. Is employer assigned and authorized to a specific duty or to enter a specific location? So Steve Ryan tells employee Brad Yoder, you are allowed to inspect the ladders and our fall protection equipment and everything we have out here, and you are allowed to enter the shop, which is an authorized personnel location only. But if he was going to do that, he'd also have to be trained in hazardous communication, which he has been. Competent person is still on page 10 there, a person capable of identifying hazards in any fall protection system or their application. Also, this person must have the authority to take prompt action. I consider every driver that works here a competent person. One, you're all smart enough to say, hey, that's not safe, and I think that you can all do that. You've all proved that. Second of all, I think we can all be a big enough bunch of jerks to say, I'm not doing that, that's stupid, someone's going to get hurt. And believe it or not, I do get quite a few near-miss phone calls where people call me and they're just like, this is not safe. And I'm like, don't sweat it, you did the right thing, we'll call them and we'll work something else out. You know, where they want to swing a crane on it. You guys recently had the problem down here with the loading situation. You know, you got to work around stuff like that, and sometimes we have to work around other companies' rules, which is very difficult. Dock boards on page 10. Dock boards are portable fixed devices that span a gap between a loading platform and a transport vehicle. Fall hazard is any condition that is on a walking surface that exposes an employee to a risk of injury from a fall on the same level or lower. That's a trailer, right? Trailer is a walking and working surface where you could fall to a lower level that's more than 4 feet. trailer's about 5 feet here, most of ours are, 5 or more. In Europe, I think that's really interesting in all my research that in Europe for over 15 years, guys that run flatbeds in most foreign countries, they wear a full body harness. They actually have a cable on their Conestogas. When it opens up, there's 2 poles and there's a cable that runs across, and that single lanyard's hanging down. So when they get on to strap their trailer, all they do is they got a little bit longer of a tail. They reach around and clip their lanyard on, and then they just walk right down the trailer and chain all their stuff down. And I've watched videos, I'm like, that really kind of doesn't look like it gets in your way. And they basically have eliminated transportation-related fall deaths off of flatbed equipment by doing that. So will it come to the United States? Not the way these regulations go. It'll be quite some time. Fall protection. FPE, fall protection equipment, is any equipment, device, or system that prevents an employee from falling from an elevation or lessens the effect of a fall. That can be almost anything. A net, a cable, a lanyard, a lifeline, a platform, anything that's going to... And OSHA wrote this, it seems like it's very broad, but they wrote it that way on purpose because they want all employers to know, hey, we'll work with you. You know, anything you can do to prevent people from getting hurt, that is great. So, what are these things? Guardrail systems are barriers erected on an unprotected edge of a walking surface. Top rail must be at least 42 inches from the working surface. The mid rail must be halfway between the walking surface and the top rail. There is a 3-inch variance in that 42 inches that they do allow. Like sometimes you can't get it up that high because there's an obstruction in the way, so they'll allow a 3-inch variance. Vertical members should be no greater than 19 inches apart. These are for bad employers on construction jobs. You can't put 2 twigs up and run another twig between them and say it's good to go. We have to tell you exactly how a guardrail has to be. Guardrail must support 200 pounds minimum in an outward and a downward direction. Ladders, I'm on page 11. So here under ladders on page 11, if you look in the middle, it says portable, fixed, and mobile. And then the mobile thing, I had to read this a couple of times, and even after I took a whole bunch of hours of classes, I'm like, what the heck are they talking about? So I tried to straighten it out. Ladders fall into 3 categories: fixed, mobile ladder stand, and a mobile ladder stand platform. Fixed ladders are attached to a building or some solid structure. Mobile ladder stands are of a fixed height. That's an important thing. They can't be adjusted. They're just as tall as they are, and they're on wheels and designed for one person. We have those, and do you guys have one here? We have one in Melbourne. You just roll it down, bang, hit the chock. It either drops the wheels or chocks the wheels. Only one person is supposed to be on those. Because the next thing, a mobile ladder stand platform, wow, I think I could have come up with a better name, but I'm just saying, are the same as a mobile ladder stand, but designed to allow more than one person to work on a platform. There is a little catch to those rules, is there has to be a plate, just like a forklift, on those mobile ladder stand platforms that says how many people are allowed to be on them. So those are types of fall protection that you have right there. Okay, page 12, personal fall protection systems provide protection from falling or safely stops a fall if one occurs, and include personal fall arrest systems, positioning systems, and travel restraint systems. Platforms are elevated walking surfaces, so every time you're on a dock, legally you're on a platform, okay? Qualified employee is one who by reason of certificate, training, or experience and knowledge has demonstrated the ability to resolve problems related to the work project at hand. I think Brad's qualified. I'm like, wow, that's Brad's job's description right there, right? So, again, if your employer says you're qualified, you're qualified. Am I qualified? I don't know. I'm a truck driver, but I took about 100 hours of class on this, so I guess I'm qualified to teach you now. But I think we all have that ability. It's common sense. If it's dangerous, don't get yourself pinned between the freight and the forklift. Don't be standing on a crack trying to, between the dock and the building, or your tarp system and the edge of the trailer. You know, think before you step. Very, very important words. Heard those a long time ago, nothing to do with this training. More definitions. Can't be simple. Ramp is a sloped walking surface. Runway is an elevated surface like a catwalk near a work area. Runways, in general, I was like, what is this? So I did a little research in it. Say you have a big open motor in a plant, a processing plant that goes to machine and has a drive shaft on it. It's like a catwalk, but it protects you from that rotating machine below it. So a runway is very similar to a catwalk, but it would allow you access to that equipment if you needed it, but in general it keeps the people walking past away from that machinery. Stairway is a combination of risers and tread that connects two levels. Scaffolds are temporary elevated platforms that do not include crane suspended platforms or rope descents, intended to support people, equipment, and materials. Important things to remember right there. Understanding the terms related to walking working surface is important when the risk is potentially a deadly fall. That's according to OSHA. Quiz on page 15. Top of the page, please put your name. My name's Steve Ryan. Date, 3/14/18, location Jeffersonville. Burn out yet, Brad?
This is really good stuff.
I'm trying to crank through it, man. I feel bad for you guys, honestly, because you're the guinea pig, and I'm trying to see how we're doing. We're only at, 30 minutes, and we're making good progress. Because the back end of this doesn't really apply to us. We're not going to do scaffolding.
So it's long and scaffolding, so that's good.
Right. We're near the end. Is everybody ready to do the quiz? Number one.
Ready.
Walking and working surfaces include what?
C.
C, correct. Which is both A and B, horizontal surfaces and vertical surfaces. Like, what am I, Spider-Man? 2, an anchorage is what?
C.
C, the point where a lifeline is attached. 3, dock boards are used with?
B.
Boy, you guys better not miss this one. If there's one thing I need you to know, it's number 3. What's the answer?
B.
B, vehicles. 4, which of the following is a fall hazard?
D.
D, an oily floor surface. Which of the following is fall protection?
All the above. D. Oh,
That's a
man.
trick question, and I actually had to go back and read it.
Guardrail.
It is C, guardrails, because we went over the definition of what the possible things were for fall protection, and platforms and catwalks were not in there. Platforms and catwalks fall into the ladders category. Okay, number 6, which I got wrong. I had to go back and correct myself. In a guardrail system, the midrail,
D.
that's what I had at first, and I was wrong.
Halfway up.
That's correct. A midrail must be halfway between the top rail and the working surface. 12 inches applies to scaffolding. It's D, is required. A mid-rail is required. Number 7. An example of a self-supporting ladder is? This
A
is
and B, C.
correct. C, A and B. A mobile ladder stand and a step ladder. They both support themselves. Number 8. Which of the following ladders support more than one person?
D.
D.
D, a mobile ladder platform, but it would have to be labeled correctly, right?
Yep.
Number 9, an example of personal fall protection system is? An anchorage isn't necessarily a fall system, right? A scaffold isn't. It's C, a travel restraint system. So I think the best example I could see that you guys would see, the guys that go into the overhead cranes, they climb up the ladders that have, it's called a well, they have a cage around them. One of the new rules, even those won't affect you, as you'll see these getting installed, is they've made those, they're prohibited, and they got to go away in the next year. There's got to be a ladder that has a brake, a rope brake attached to you that you can't have your hands on. So if you got to go up and run the crane in a steel mill, you got to be able to use your hands and feet to climb up it. You have to have some type of harness device. that has a brake on it, basically, with a lifeline, a rope line that goes up there. So if you fall, it'll automatically brake you right there in place. You're not going to go more than like one rung and it's going to stop you in there. So those are required for installation coming up here in the next year. Because people fall in those tubes, and the idea is that you won't go very far, but unfortunately you can actually go all the way down, right, all the way to the bottom. If anybody finds anything that I'm wrong on, please let me know. Don't be shy, because this is my first go around. I tried to really double research all these answers.
Plus he's really shy.
Okay.
Yeah.
An example of personal fall protection is a travel restraint system. And number 10, which of the following can be on a scaffold?
D.
D. Materials, tools and equipment, and employees. Turn those in, please.
Robbie, who the hell taught you how to rip saws?
Nobody.
That's, Rick,
That's what's like a log. That's how you had a log. Yeah. Eric.
We got another one behind there, Brad. Okay, fellas. OSHA 1910 subpart D. You got that ingrained in your brain yet? Walking working surfaces. On page 17, fall protection. Do we use it? Very possible in the near future at the mills. Who provides the best training for a particular situation or fall protection? This is important. The manufacturer. Okay? So if I find a piece of harness I got to put on at a mill, and the mill says, you got to go watch this training video and sign here, and they have written documentation, OSHA says the best person to tell you how to inspect a harness, how to wear a harness, how to use a harness, is the manufacturer. So any training video you watch really should be provided by the manufacturer or reference the manufacturer. That's the way you tell if it's good training or bad training, if you should come to learn fall protection. The manufacturer is always the one you go to decide how we store it, how we use it, how we inspect it, the best thing to do with that piece of equipment. You may be required to watch short training videos prior to loading. Don't be afraid to ask questions. When in doubt, stop and call in. Don't use fall protection that you're not comfortable with, because has anybody in here ever had to use fall protection? Oh, okay. I forgot, I did find a picture of me with a full respirator on, 7 years working at Darling. I was wearing a fall protection all the time. We were on top of open buckets full of guts, sweating your hind end off with a respirator and safety glass and a hard hat. It gets cumbersome when you get all that PPE on, that personal protective equipment, and you're trying to concentrate on not doing your job, not tripping over all this stuff you got on. So at any time that somebody asks you to use PPE that you're not comfortable with, any type of protection equipment, just stop and say, I'm not doing that, and call in, okay? Because you can get really hurt and tangled up in PPE if you don't know how to use it. If you don't understand how shock cords and lanyards, there's a lot of different kind of lanyards that we're not going to cover today. Some of the new kinds that I used to use on roofs were, they actually stretch now, and it's a lot easier on your spine and your body. It doesn't jerk you as bad, but the old type were just literally a piece of strapping, wham, and they hurt. Anybody in here falling off a roof? I've been snapped on. He just recently busted off a roof. I've been snagged by a lanyard a couple times off 2 stories. It's a creepy feeling. Not cool. Okay, falls from elevation are the leading cause of death in general industry. Employers must provide fall protection if you're exposed to potential falls of 4 feet or more in general industry. And again, under 1910, 10.30, we are covered in other surfaces. That's how they get us. Okay, that's why we have to train for this. Let's see here. So we are on to page number 18. Types of fall protection. This is important information. Covers, designated areas, guardrails, PFP, personal fall protection, ladder safety systems, and safety nets. Rules for fall protection can be found under 29 CFR 1910, 29, 40, and 140. By law, I'm required to tell you where you can find those rules. This presentation is available. Anybody that would like it emailed to you, I have it separately as a standalone. I can email it to you. Okay. Employers must provide personal fall protection if required, train you on how to recognize and minimize fall hazards. This is like a refresher slide. Train you on inspection, installation, use, disassembly, maintenance of personal fall protection, and retrain you when a lack of skill or understanding is demonstrated for the use of personal fall protection. So again, we're not going to have personal fall protection here, but I'm telling you, you're going to see it start to happen in these mills because they're all training for this right now. Definitions. Covers, I'm on page 18 still. Trying to mix in some useful information with this giant regulation of partially useful information. Covers are secured, removable caps used to protect you from falling in a hole. Designated areas are only used on low slope roofs and not applicable to our industry. Anybody know what those are, designated areas? Anybody done any roof work? It's when you see those cables along the side of a roof or on a real high building. That's keeping you in the designated work area. So you can work on a lifeline with your harness and a lanyard on, but you're not allowed beyond that cable even with fall protection. It's too dangerous. And there's rules depending on the structure and the slope of the roof, how far back it's got to be from the edge. So they actually bolt posts down and put cables to keep you from going past that. Guardrail systems are barriers erected on an unprotected edge of a walking, working surface. So they can be on dock platforms. You'll see those a lot. Handrails are a type of fall protection that provide handholds. PFP or personal fall arrest systems include a body harness, anchorage, and a connector. You can freely move, but will be stopped in the event of a fall. Travel restraint systems eliminate the possibility of a fall and include a body harness, anchorage, and a lanyard. Positioning devices support you on a vertical surface and allows you to work with both hands. You must remain in a fixed position. The way I keep those straight is an arborist harness. You know, you're jumping up the tree with your rope and you're stuck there. You're not going anywhere, that's it. If you got a roofing harness on, you can walk around, jump off the edge, bang, your lanyard's got you, right? But when you got a positioning device on, you can't really move too good. Page number, boy, I really whizzed through that.
Quiz.
Wait a minute. Okay, inspections. On my notes, which I didn't print out, some of the order they put the stuff in the book, I didn't think they gave you enough stuff for the quiz. So positioning devices, we had inspections. So inspections of personal fall arrest systems, travel restraints, and positioning devices must be inspected prior to use and at the beginning of each shift. That's a common thing. Inspection must be documented. Does it say that in this book? No, but if you read all of 1910-178 subpart D, it does say that. So we inspect ladders in our shops. There's supposed to be a little clipboard hanging in there that you initial and the date. It says I inspected this beginning of my shift. If it doesn't get used for 12 days and you go use it, you're supposed to inspect it before you use it, okay? Do any of you guys have ladders on your trucks? You know, separate ladders that you carry? I always used to have a step ladder I carried, but now these kind of stoves are easier to get in and out of.
I got
The ones that ran would have a ladder that comes out the back of them.
Right, okay.
I
You
got
got
one.
one too, don't you?
Yeah,
It slide out on the back.
yeah, slides out the back.
Okay.
That's kind of a stationary deal. I mean, they don't come off.
That's
Yeah.
fixed, it's really attached to a structure,
Yeah,
right?
it's attached, you can't get it off.
You gotta inspect it every day.
And that could be included in your pre-trip inspection, and I actually asked that question in one of the classes. I said, well, we have these ladders that are attached to the truck. Is that a fixed ladder? And they're like, yes, it's attached to a structure. I'm like, well, the structure moves. It's on wheels. They're like, doesn't matter. It still fits the definition. I'm like, well, do I have to have a separate sheet in each truck, or could this be included on their pre-trip? And they're like, no, as long as it's inspected. So if you have one of those and you say it was inspected, then it's inspected. Inspections must include documented checks for mildew, wear, damage, and deterioration. Ladders have to be checked. Their rungs, cleats, rails, and their feet have to be inspected, and they can't be painted. Ladder safety systems on page 22. I had to interject a couple of common sense slides in here because I get to the end, get to the quiz, There's a couple of the questions on the quizzes, the answer didn't come until later in the book, and I'm like, well, that's not gonna help you at all, right? Okay, so ladder safety systems on page 22. A ladder safety system prevents falls from fixed ladders. Remember, those are bolted to a building or a trailer. They consist of a lifeline, safety sleeve, lanyard, connectors, and a body harness. The safety sleeve is a moving component. I always have called those brakes, a line brake. Safety sleeve is a moving component that rides on the lifeline and does not require you to push or pull the device. You must be trained on how to inspect, use, and maintain the system. Does anybody know how the safety sleeve works? They're designed, there's a little switch that they flip. So when you're going up the ladder and there's a rope that's in that tube, that ladder you're going up, you flip the switch and you're
The
climbing
ladder
up.
should go up,
It'll only
but
go
not
up,
back.
and if you fall backwards, it breaks on the rope. When you go to come down, you flip the little switch on the brake. They're an expensive little device, and it only lets you go in one mode. You're still going down, but it won't let you go. They're designed differently. Some are 1 foot, some are 10 inches. It depends on the climbing application, but you can get them so they're instantly. If you start to accelerate, a G-force, it grabs the rope and stops you right there in place. So they call them a safety sleeve, just like they call dock plates dock boards. Guess they should have talked to a forklift guy, right? Before they called that a dock board. Anybody that climbs or has done any climbing, most of them call them a rope brake, but here they're calling them a sleeve. We must train you on how to inspect, use, and maintain the system. You will be not using any climbing gear here. Safety nets. You're going to see some of those in the mills. Safety nets are a type of fall protection used on unprotected sides, wall openings, or low slope opening roofs. These are common in manufacturing and transportation. Must be installed as close as possible to the work and no more than 30 feet, below the working surface. I thought about that for a minute. I'm like, so if I fall 3 stories with my Makita and my hard hat and hit a soccer net, how's that going to feel? Probably not real good, right? 30 feet's a long way. Inspection, right?
You might bring you right back up there.
Yes, you could only hope, then rather than just stop. It's not the fall that kills you, it's the stop, right? It's stopping hard. Inspection must be done weekly for wear, damage, and deterioration. Hey, why couldn't we, I'm just saying, why couldn't we have said it before, prior to use, and at the beginning of each shift? Why couldn't we be consistent? But it's not. Weekly for wear, damage, and deterioration. Additional inspections are required after any occurrence. So if you fall 3 stories on my net, I gotta check it out. That's the rule. Quiz, page 25. Welcome to the new exciting game show, Walking and Working Surfaces. Please put your name, my name, Steve Ryan, and the date and location at the top of the page. While you're doing that, we'll get started. You must be provided with fall protection if you are exposed to A, fall hazards. Number 2, the purpose of fall protection is to
C.
Woo! Rocket science prevents you from falling. Number 3, you must be provided with fall protection at
B.
B, 4 feet and above. 4, covers are used to prevent you from falling into holes. Oh, I'm just going to refrain from any type of
She
comment.
said, keep going.
Keep going.
Wasn't no lot lizard sticker on that one. Number 5, designated areas can only be used on top of A, low slope roofs. Number 6, a guardrail is a physical barrier that consists
D.
of D, all the above, top rail, mid rail, and post. Number 7.
D.
Hey, what'd you say on 5? You missed that. Yeah. Low proof.
Man, sorry, I'm slipping. Number 5, designated areas can only be used on top of
Slope.
low slope roofs.
A.
Yep. A. So 6, guardrail is a physical barrier that consists of
D.
D, all the above, top rail, mid rail, and post. Number 7, types of personal fall protection include
D.
correct. D, all the above, personal fall arrest, travel restraint, and positioning devices. Number 8, personal fall protection must be inspected before use for
D.
D, all the above, right? Number 9, a ladder safety system prevents falls from
C.
Does everybody agree? Just checking to see if anybody else is paying attention. It's C, fixed ladders. A ladder safety system is only used on one of them ladders bolted to a building that's probably got a tube around it. Number 10, if provided fall protection, you must be trained on how to, what?
D.
D, all the above. Inspect it, use it, maintain it. Very good. You guys are knocking it out. This is going about like I thought it was done. Okay.
We won't be here for 12 hours.
JK is going to collect them up. Make sure you got your name, rank, and serial number on there.
It's out of here till 5 o'clock now. It's out of here by rush hour.
You keep bullshitting, we'll be out of here at 7 o'clock now. I'm doing the best I can. I bet you can't even talk as fast as I can. Here we go, page 27. Ladders. Ladders must be free of coatings, punctures, cuts, and used only for the purpose designed and inspected before each shift or use. Defective ladders must be tagged out of service. Okay, I think I went on over. Okay, I combined a bunch of pages here, so if you look up at the slide. Ladders, fixed, portable, and mobile. When ladders are used, you must face the ladder. This is condensed important information. You must face the ladder. You must use at least one-handed 2 feet. You must not carry any object or load that could cause you to fall. Hazards of ladders include unsafe environment. An example would be electricity or people in forklifts driving around you. What you're supposed to do if you set up a step ladder and you're fixing a light above you, is you're supposed to put cones and tape out and make a designated work area. If it's a high traffic area with motorized equipment, there should be a person on the ground directing traffic and preventing people from walking through your work area so something doesn't fall and hit them. All right? So there's a lot of things that sound stupid, but again, most electricians get killed from falling off a step ladder working on fluorescent lights, so I guess that's reasonable, right? A ladder is unsafe environment. A ladder is damaged. You're not following safe climbing techniques. Don't carry a bunch of stuff. Ladder damage could be sharp edges, bends, or dents and loose parts. Select a ladder that is designated for the work and has the proper load rating. I've been writing this together because I'm just like this is terrible. This is so hard to present. It's an awful jumble of regulatory stuff. And this whole time I've been painting since last October. I painted the whole house I moved out of and the whole house I moved into. House I moved into, my 32-foot ladder was too tall, and a 28 is out almost to the last rung to reach these cathedral ceilings. And you're literally painting 1 inch at a time. The whole time I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, man, this is going to be bad if there's a dead safety guy in the living room and I'm doing washing, you know. And it did break my temptation to use, I have a very tall step ladder that I simply could have just thrown up and run up there and done it, but I didn't. I actually got the right ladder and put it up on the wall. All right. There's another important rule that I'm going to cover right now. Does anybody know what the 4-1 rule is for ladders? For every 4 feet a ladder goes up, it's got to go out 1 foot. Okay? So if a ladder goes up 8 feet, it's got to be out 2 feet at the bottom. The second most important rule, and this is something OSHA looks for on work sites and in manufacturing facilities, is the top of the ladder must extend beyond the working surface 3 feet. Why is that?
Just get on and off it.
Right, so you can get on and off so you don't have to step through. That's always bad. You always want to step off to the side. 1 foot to the side and 1 foot over. That way the ladder stays straight. Hey, I did have it on there. Okay, so I covered that. Wow, I can't believe I remembered that. Fixed ladders on dock. Cages and wells are being phased out from use on fixed ladders. Fixed ladders, this is a change. 24 feet or greater now require ladder safety systems or PFP. And I was thinking this as I was painting my peaked ceiling in my living room. Like, I'm about 26 foot. This is just not going to look good in the headlines. 2 main types of fixed ladders are side step, must step over the side at the landing, and step through, where you step through the ladder itself at the landing. Most dock fixed ladders are step through type. You come up and step through the hole. Portable ladders include step ladders, straight ladders, and extension ladders. Ladders used near electrical sources must be wood or fiberglass. Quiz on page 35.
Cool.
Okay, name, rank, and serial number at the top. Instructor name, date, and location. I'll get cranking on here. I believe we're damn near the end, fellas. I got one more. You're right. It's a quickie. Okay. Number one, the three main types of ladders are C, portable, fixed, and mobile. Number two, when ladders must be inspected.
A and B.
D. A and B.
B, before use on each shift.
I knew that.
When the ladder falls, that's a bad choice,
Yeah.
right? Okay, let's just not go with that one.
Okay.
So the answer to number two is B. Number three, an example of how the working environment can lead to injury include. The key is working environment can lead to an injury.
High traffic area.
It's B, the ladder is set up in a high traffic area. Always make sure the ladder is set up that your area is cordoned off, you've established a work area, it's blocked off. Number four, items to look for during a ladder inspection include
C.
C, which is both of the above, loose or missing fittings or corrosion. Number five, excuse me. Safe climbing techniques include
D.
It's A. Grasping the ladder with at least one hand while climbing up and down. 1 hand and 2 feet.
3-point contact.
3-point contact.
Yes, sir. Number 6, 3-point contact is correct. Number 6, step ladders, straight ladders, and extension ladders are all examples of
Mobile ladders. B.
B is a fail.
C. Yes.
C, portable ladders, correct?
Yeah.
You can take them somewhere.
Yep.
A mobile ladder is a fixed height and it might be on wheels, so the answer is C to number 6. Number 7, if you use a ladder near an electrical source.
B.
B, it should be wood or fiberglass. Number 8, using the 4-to-1 rule when you set up an extension ladder having 12 feet of working length, the base of the ladder must be how many feet away from the wall?
D. D.
D is 3, that is correct. Number 9, what type of fall protection for fixed ladders is being phased out? Cages and wells, A. Number 10, which type of mobile ladder allows 2 workers to be on it?
C.
Mobile ladder platform.
Correct,
Platform.
C, mobile ladder platform.
And it's gotta be labeled that.
Where you going, Joe?
I ain't missing
I
one
remember
yet.
that because it was weird.
Okay,
Where's the next quiz?
I'm pumping it up here. Scaffolds on page 37 are not applicable to our industry. If you're asked to use scaffold, you must be trained prior to usage. We're skipping to page 50.
All right.
Page 49.
No, page 50, we're skipping scaffolds.
51.
51.
51. Okay, so this is kind of an add-in here because I felt the ad that Jeff brought that over. Is that the dead antenna?
Yeah, both of them are bad antennas.
Dead antennas, okay. All right, on page 51, and if we look up here at the slides, this is an add-in. So dock boards, or plates as we would call them in the truck driving world, must have side protection to prevent a powered industrial truck, a pit, we couldn't just call it a forklift, from falling from the edge. Never stand on a dock board during loading or unloading or when forklift traffic is present. Dock boards should be crossed on foot only when necessary in one continuous movement. Always assume the forklift operator can't see you. This is an add-in, it's not in the book. We've had 2 incidents with forklifts. One of them was this year, And both of them resulted in the trailer moving out, either slipping on ice or the landing gear going down. And the forklift became lodged between the trailer and the dock plate. It's a pretty serious situation.
Yeah, that's not good at all.
Because most of the time, the short story is if you are on a forklift that crashes and you don't have your seatbelt on and you stick anything outside of it, a lot of people were taught years ago to jump free of a forklift. Does anybody know the right thing to do?
Stay on it.
Stay on it.
Hang on like hell, tuck it in just like a motorcycle crash.
Yeah.
Because if a tractor trailer runs over your foot, you'll keep it. It'll be broken and mangled, but you'll keep it. An air-wheeled vehicle, a pneumatic tire. If a forklift or a solid object that weighs 10,000 pounds runs over your foot or crushes your arm or your leg, what happens?
Gone.
You lose it.
It gets amputated. Because what it does is just like a meat tenderizer on chicken. It just squishes the muscles and the tendons beyond repair, so you can't get them fixed. It's like 97% of tow motor accidents, whether it's running feet over, falling off docks, result in amputation or death. That's how they go. Forklift accidents are bad, so we have to deal with dock boards. So now they're going to have those sides on them like they should have had all along. I came up with I worked in a forklift that had firearms and batteries years and years ago. We were having a ton of forklift accidents. So I came up with this rule, being the hillbilly that I am, and I said, nobody has the right of way. Nobody has the frickin' right of way. The forklift guy, because people were arguing with me, I'm like, you don't have the right of way, he doesn't have the right of way, no one has the right of way. So the rule became, if I was walking and you were driving a forklift, that I stopped and you stopped. And both people had to have a hand signal. If anybody goes in an automotive plant, the tow motor drivers always stop and they will wave you through a pedestrian thing. And you gotta watch a video before you go in there. So if you always assume they can't see you, they got those posts in the way. Where I'm going with all this is when you are on a dock plate and the tow motor's coming and your feet are right there, don't assume this dude can see you. You know, they might be incompetent. They might not be able to see. A million things can happen. Don't get crushed by a forklift. Most injuries and death result from falls to lower level, but falls at the same level can be just as serious. The Harley-Davidson tipping over a stoplight, bang, melon gone. Cuts, bruises, strains, sprains, and back injuries often result from slips, trips, or falls. What is the most common cause of death with electrical worker? We already talked about that, falling off the ladder. Understanding friction, momentum, and gravity play a major role in what happens. Stop, think, and look before you step. Very difficult to train yourself to do. Anybody that's, sure several of you guys have stepped in the dock plate hole, almost stepped off the trailer, strained your groin. You only do it one time and then you're thinking about it all the time. Look before you move your feet. Anybody in here ever do hazmat stuff? I know there's a couple of you guys. Somebody here? Yeah, that's one of the major things they teach us. Before you move anything, your feet or your hands or your head or anything, is look. Make sure you got your crap together before you move, because you can kill yourself in a second. Stop, think, and look. Stepping off the side of a trailer could result in death or injury. Take short steps if you must walk on a slippery surface. More friction, right? Clean up or block off spills right away. Walk, don't run. In short falls, what is the first thing to hit the ground? That's your head. We already talked about that. Quiz on page 57.
Oh, yeah.
The sweet smell of victory. Please put your name, rank, and serial number at the top. What is this pile across the street? Is this salt?
Grain.
Grain?
Corn drain.
Corn or soybean.
Two of them over.
Yeah, there's two of them out there in the back over the
That
white
was
one. You see
wheat.
back over there, that's your salt.
Is it wheat?
Over the big pile back in the corner up there.
Boy, you could fill a big still up there, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Those bags in the silos are big steels.
Hold me out on my blue time.
Okay, let's go.
Alrighty. Slip, trips, and falls review. Slips are more likely to occur when you don't pay attention to where you're walking or when you B, hurry or run. Number 2, one way to avoid tripping is to
C.
Make sure you can see what you're doing, where you're going, okay? Watch where you step. Number 3, the 3 laws of science involved in a fall are friction, blank, and gravity.
A.
Momentum. That's correct. A is the answer to number 3. 4, blank can occur when gravity takes over if you move too far off the center of your balance. Falls. C, correct. Number 5, blank can occur when there is a loss of balance caused by too little friction between your feet and the surface you walk or work on.
Slip.
Slip.
Slips. A is the correct answer to number 5. Number 6, blank can occur when your foot hits an object and you are moving with enough momentum to be thrown off balance. B is trips. That's correct. Number 7, when should you post signs or place barricades to warn others? What's the answer?
D.
I'd say B.
D, all the above.
It's D, all the above. Common sense. If you're shoveling slow, it's going to make it slippery. You're mopping the floor, it's going to be slippery. If you put a rubber mat in front of a doorway where somebody could trip, okay, should make sure that you're making other people
So you
aware.
ought to take your welcome mats and throw them away because that's a possible trip hazard, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
I don't have welcome mat.
Number 8, climbing a blank can cause a fall.
B.
Did somebody say B?
You said B.
He's gotta stay.
You fellas are worrying me. A, defective ladder climb. Maybe if you come from the corn pile over here.
Yeah, it's fermented in the bottom.
Number 9, be sure to report C, both A and B, burnout light bulbs and torn carpeting.
Absolutely.
Anything that could prevent you from not seeing or to trip or fall. 10, if you spill your soda in an aisle,
No,
I'm
Leo, it's not A.
it's B, wipe it up right away.
How my grandkids would do that.
All right. JK's. So that took 1 hour flat. That was good. All we got left is driver awards.
Oh, we're
We're not gonna stay away.
I missed that derogatory comment. Could you repeat it?
Somebody tear Robbie's page out this time. I don't know, he and we better.
Yeah.
The last one's in bad shape.
It's what happens when you're left-handed working with right-handed crap.
That's good, because that's what I was told.
I do not have this gift card because Melissa's got it locked up and she left before I got it.
Oh, man.
Hey, Brad.
What's this for?
Driver of the quarter, and it is.
This is the
2017 quarter 4,
Pretty sure what it is.
and that was quarter 3, but it's not here. Okay.
All right, well, drum roll, yeah.
Drum roll.
As you guys know, we combine your terminal with Springfield, just like we do with maintenance and the amount of equipment. So actually, the third quarter of 2017, the driver of the quarter was David Gibson, if you guys know Dave from up there at Springfield. But the fourth quarter for 2017 was none other than Carl Doyle.
No.
That's $1,000 up. Flashlights. Talking about flashlights. I can use that in that dark well. That's right, back into that dark hole. Make sure you turn that flashlight on. We also have a Walmart card, but Melissa forgot to send the Wally World.
Yeah, I'll send it down.
David.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks for doing a nice job and for all sarcasm. Appreciate it.
Damn it, you got my name on that.
It ain't a good thing.
Hey, before we depart, Tom Weir, he was driver of the year this year. He's been here, what, 37 years? I already gave all that garbage out. Tom's been here for a long, long time. He's an owner-operator. He's always the top performer in money. I think he's 67. He's pretty close to retiring. And Tom just all the time going out of the way to help anybody. I mean, he's put the brakes on and done it. So he was driver of the year. And Brad and Roger, remembering way back, don't think that he ever got it the whole time he worked here. He's just kind of silently in the background doing a great job, so we thought he deserved some recognition. He's a good guy. I appreciate your patience. I will send Mr. Doyle's card down. Thanks for participating in walking and working surfaces and being the guinea pig.
Well, it was our pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
And
Flag.
I know there was one other thing I was going to ask you guys. And there, from last year, is there anybody that I still owed a coat? It's not, what do you call them? Loader's coat, a meat cutter's coat. You know what I'm talking about, the loading coats?
butcher's coat, yeah.
Is there anybody that I didn't get theirs out to? I think I got them all out for driver of the quarter. Everybody got theirs here? Okay. Were you driver of the quarter? It was a driver of the quarter.
Yeah, see, I'm driver of the quarter right here.
Go lay over there in that corn pile. Come back to me in 15 minutes. You're only allowed to lay at the bottom. I don't want you to slip going up to the top.
You might slip and fall over the hill.
Okay. I think that's it. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate the good job you do. Feel free to go out and sit in the traffic jam. I promised you that. I don't live here.
You held up your promise.
That was fun.
See you guys. Thanks.
Who gotta make that out there? That's always me. Who gotta make it out there?
Thanks for coming, sir.
Stephen, thank you for walking this way. That's the green line.
It's been fun, but not real fun.
I got it on my note. Thank you.
Just kept eating.
You signed it?
Leo, good. Peace out.
It's the hard.
It's what?
It's hard, but I try.
I can put you on a strong report if you want to be here about.
I'm following it too with them. And we're not going to talk about how much it cost. Let's just say it was a couple houses worth.
Well, I know it's actually a two-stop. You're familiar with Strong. Yeah, there's an alley, I think, that runs next to it.
Are they selling?
Behind it, there's another business called. When you get back.
No, we just bought some used trailers, as a matter of fact. We are, all the trucks are full and we're basically short.
The docks in the rear of each building.
Why, are you looking for another trailer? Oh, you just got it open?
I got a side kit I bought off Roger. He's selling.
Okay, isn't there an alley next to Stronghold? You said with
You know what, I'll make a note of that, because I do know when stuff's going for sale usually.
I don't think it goes to Fabricate.
So you gotta go around then, you're saying?
It's the turn. I told you that dog's gonna name the street.
Can you have two trucks?
Yeah, when you make that turn, yeah.
You gotta get a driver, he's gotta pass our criteria. No axe murderers, dope dealers, everybody you know is ruled out.
Maybe a gate starter.
Right, we can work with that.
Look, damn near right there in the corner. It's a gate on your right. That's right there.
Well, I'll let Roger know.
Cause that whole corner, that side is pretty much Fabricate Metals, they got the offices on this side, they got the little warehouse on the other side. Right where, offices left, warehouse. That gate, that's where you're gonna back into.
But it's the street right before you get to Stronghold.
Yeah,
How you doing, buddy?
The address is actually.
Good out there?
Everything on
yeah, okay, yeah.
got that mission.
I think that's it, I think it's soon.
I've been back there, that alleyway, one of